You are listening to the SDSU podcast presented by the East Village Times with your hosts Andre Hagverdian and Paul Garrison. Welcome, listeners, back to the SDSU podcast. I am your host, Andre Hagverdian. This is episode 120, and it's continuing to get you ready for the baseball season at San Diego State that is about to start this weekend on Friday night, 5 p.m. at Tony Gwynn Stadium, as the Aztecs take on Portland to start a 3-game series on the opening weekend of the season. 2 episodes ago, we had a sit-down with 4 players from the baseball team: Irvin Weems, Sean Montoya, Omar Serrano, and Johnny Guzman. Today's episode, I had a chance to chat with head coach Shaun Cole to get us ready for the season. Asked him about some of the starting rotation, some of the positional battles, and how they're going to look to jumpstart the offense, which was a main area that needs improvement from last season. They had the best pitching staff ERA-wise in the Mountain West the last 2 seasons, and they obviously want to continue that and improve upon that and get even better. But the offense definitely needs to pick up the slack if they want to not just win a regular season title, but win the conference tournament and get deeper into postseason baseball. Let's get to my conversation with Coach Cole, and then Paul and I will come back and give our takeaways about this discussion. We want to welcome SDSU's baseball coach Shaun Cole back to the podcast. How are you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing good. How are you?
We're doing good too. Hopefully you're staying dry and safe from this tornado warning.
Yeah, I took my kayak into work this morning. I'm just kidding. We started preparing last week, so we shifted gears and went to a local indoor facility and got our bullpen working, and our hitters took today off, which is not necessarily a bad thing. So yeah, the rain's been interesting. Hopefully this is the last of the big heavy winds and rain.
How did the offseason go for the Aztecs? Your first offseason as head coach?
You're talking about over the winter break?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. Knock on wood, everybody came back healthy. Everybody came back stronger. We had a great winter vacation and also enjoyed the holiday season with family and friends.
We had 4 of your players on the podcast last week. Irvin Weems, Sean Montoya, Omar Serrano, Johnny Guzman. What makes those 4 special parts of your team this upcoming season?
They're all older, they're experienced. You hope that they take the next step forward to lead this group and mesh well with our incoming transfers and our freshmen. But yeah, those guys are a core piece to what I think our success is going to be this season.
Your season starts next weekend, February 16th, I believe. Are you ready to tip your hand on who the rotation is going to be for that opening series?
Sure. I'm leaning toward Chris Canada on Friday night, Omar Serrano on Saturday, and then Xavier Cardenas on Sunday.
Cool. Those are the 3 I think we were thinking about, maybe in a different order, but that's good to know. Why those 3 and what that order?
I always lean toward resumes and experience, and I think the natural progression always was for Chris to be the Friday guy. He's been the Sunday guy. He's been the Saturday guy. Same with Omar. He did a great job with Sunday last year, so move him up to Saturday. Xavier's done a great job. He's pitched well enough to argue that he should be the Friday guy, but I don't forget that he's not far removed from high school, and I just don't want to push the gas too fast with Xavier. Plus, if our older guys do what they're supposed to do on Friday and Saturday, it sets us up really well with a really good Sunday guy.
How do you see the bullpen playing out? Are you looking at a closer by committee? or do you like to have that one ninth inning guy who's going to be the guy, and then some of your high leverage guys before him?
Sure. I think we always like to have that one guy in the ninth that we're real comfortable with and we trust. Right now, I'm leaning toward a rotation of guys early on, just because I also like to have a seventh inning, eighth inning, ninth inning guy. On paper, right now, we have quite a bit of depth, maybe more than we've had in the past, so we can match up with left-handers, right-handers, and really through the course of the weekend, based off of workload, we might be able to move some guys around and have 3 or 4 different closers.
One name that popped up was Jake Jackson. Perfect Game had listed him as freshman of the year in the Mountain West. What can you tell us about Jake, and where do you see him playing this season?
Big time athlete. If it wasn't for Irv and Sean Montoya in his way, he'd probably be the everyday center fielder. And there's a chance we might rotate him in there. Right now, knock on wood, it looks like we have 3 center fielders running around, so that's good for the pitching staff, and that's good for just our overall defense. But yeah, he's grown tremendously. Coach Tarasco, Coach McDougal, and Foxcroft have all done a really good job, especially Coach Tarasco, because he works with our outfielders. But Jake he's a super athlete, and I think everybody knew that out of high school. And 3-sport guy. We're happy to have him in the program, and I think he's going to impact our lineup every day. So I'm excited to see him go through the course of his season, and I'm excited for him to have a big freshman year.
A lot was talked about with the middle of the order from last year is gone. They've moved on. Where do you see the power and the extra base hits coming from in the order?
Sure. Good question. I think Jake's going to potentially be one of those guys. We have another freshman, Colby Turner, that I think is going to give him a run for his money for freshman player of the year. We were just talking about Irv Weems. That's another guy that I hope he can get back to where he was as a freshman and show power to all fields. Brady Lavoie is another one, a transfer from NC State that has a bunch of raw power potential. So we're looking for him to take some steps forward and hopefully take some responsibility in that 4 or 5 hole and drive in some runs for us. Tito Betancourt's another one that's been around for a while that I think if we're working on some adjustments right now, and if we can get to his power, he could be another threat in the lineup to hit some home runs.
When we had the discussion with your new staff a few months ago, base running was a topic of discussion. We talked about that with Irv and Shaun as well. How do you think that's going to play a part in your team's success this year?
I mean, you saw how many attempts we had last year, over 100. So it's definitely been the identity of this program, and I think that's something that Coach Martinez established a long time ago, and we're looking to carry that forward. Tony Tarasco's been doing a great job. I've seen a bunch of guys going hard out of the box, going for doubles, and we've had some first to thirds and guys running on dirt balls. So we're definitely gonna be aggressive on the bases, and that's gonna be a part of our identity as a team.
How do you think, we talked about this already with the players last week. The pitching was the strength of the team. The offense struggled. How do you think the offense has kind of responded to the new coaching staff and maybe the philosophy about of hitting that might be a little bit different than the previous philosophy?
I'll answer that question in about 6 to 8 weeks. I'm just kidding. So far they've done really well. That's one thing I've been very fortunate. Our coaching staff from the very beginning has gelled together. They communicate well together. The players seem to receive them well. Obviously I'm over with the pitching staff a lot, so I got to have 3 assistants that I really trust with the offense and the identity we want to create. And so far, I think we're trending in the right direction.
What do you see as like the 1 or 2 main keys to unlocking the offense? Is it power? Is it more taking singles? Is it, base running? Well, what do you think is going to be the main key?
Well, one of the things I talk about just with our team, our offense, even on the mound, is balance. So you got to have a mix of all three of those things or four of them. You got to be able to hit singles. You got to be able to take the extra base. You got to be able to steal bases. And if you're able to do those things and create chaos on the bases, that's when it usually opens up for the home run to show up. So, especially in the Mountain West, if we're going to have guys on base and we're able to distract the pitchers a little bit, then that's when location starts to get sacrificed and balls get up in the zone. And then we just can't miss those pitches, and we got to be able to knock them out of the park.
The one of the conversations we had right when you got hired was talking about the Padres and, using them, as someone that's in the community, using them as a benefit. I think it was last week we saw on social media that some of the Padres pitchers were out at Tony Gwynn Stadium throwing to some of your batters. Can you talk about what that was and how that came about and why that benefits your players?
Well, I think the same with UCSD, USD, San Diego State. We're all looking to have a relationship with our flagship major league team. So, San Diego Padres reached out. They have some concerts and some other stuff going on at Petco. So they had some players show up early, which is a good sign. Hopefully that's positive vibes for their upcoming season. But a lot of their major league arms were looking to throw live BP, and some of their hitters were out here also. So they came over to San Diego State, and it worked out great. It was a beautiful day, and it looked like there was a lot of good social media interest. So that's good for the Padres and for San Diego State.
Yeah, absolutely. You're a pitching guy. The defense has to be a big part of your identity. What type of defensive team do you think you have this coming season?
I'm going to stay with balance. That's what we've been talking about from day one. And just, I learned this from Andy Lopez at Arizona. Keep the game simple, play catch on defense, put the ball on play on offense, and throw strikes on the mound. And usually good things work out. So we're just seeking balance all the way across the board, behind the dish, on the dirt, in the outfield, and just play catch. Don't miss your cuts. Don't make mistakes, basically. So those are the things that we're preaching right now, and we've been working on.
A big part of defense, obviously, in pitching is the catcher. You've talked about a catching competition. How does that play out? Who has emerged in that role?
They're still competing against each other. So early on, I think I'm gonna go back to balance again. We're gonna balance it out. Evan Sipe will probably get the nod Fridays and Saturdays, and David Whittle will be the Sunday midweek catcher. And you could see that flip flop over the course of time. I am big on relationships between catchers and pitchers. So if we do fall into those routines of the Friday, Saturday, Sunday guys, then probably pairing the catchers and trying to keep that the same as much as possible. But yeah, out the gate, they're going to split time, and they both earned the right to do that. So I'm excited to see what those guys do. And to be honest with you, I hope that we get balance from both of them through the whole entire course of the season, because then that means they're both playing really well.
Yeah, when you got hired, one of the questions, the posed to you was about recruiting San Diego. You mentioned about how much talent is in this community. How do you think you've done in kind of keeping some of the local people in here in San Diego State or in the future, and in your first off season?
Another good question, and a good follow-up question. We actually just had our 2024 class official visits on campus last weekend, and there's a good core group in that mix of San Diego players, and then same with the 2025 class. So that's still the priority, and we're going to maintain that. And the 2026 class is a key class for us to target right now too, because that's probably going to be a little bit smaller. Our most recent group that just showed up and the ones showing up next year they're 20 plus players. So we're going to scale it down and definitely be seeking key core San Diego guys in that 2026 group. So if there's anybody out there listening that's interested, reach out to Max Foxcroft for our prospect camps.
Yeah, you have 19 freshmen on the roster, seven sophomores, 9 juniors, 3 seniors. some might look at it and say like we're going to build through the portal this offseason, but you did it a different way. You know, you did bring some portal guys in, but you also went heavy on freshmen. What was behind that approach?
Yeah, you're probably going to get tired of hearing me say this, but some type of balance on both sides. So when you're looking at your roster, if you sway too far to the transfer portal or you go too far to the high school ranks, then things can get out of whack. So for me, whether it's right or wrong, I've kind of looked at the transfer portal as a free agent market, and we're going to sprinkle in areas of need, but we're going to stay true to player development. And then going back to what you just asked is growing local homegrown talent, whether that blends all the way up to Orange County or Los Angeles. We're still going to be in California pretty heavy. Same with NorCal. But you got to have that good foundation and base, I believe, for culture and for your team and your program. And you got to be able to develop guys. And then, like I said, you can look up, and that's really where that 26 group may be heavy portal. It could be high school guys. It's really what we see in the next couple of years with the current personnel we have.
Because of the youth on the team, do you look at this season and it being your first year, do you look at this as a rebuilding year, or is it more of a full steam ahead?
Full steam ahead. I think that's one advantage of being here the last couple of years too, is Coach Brown, Coach Martinez, myself, Coach Kirby, we recruited a lot of these guys. So I wouldn't look at it as a complete rebuild. I've been saying more and more to just our staff about this is a foundational year. And that's where I am forecasting, 2026, 2027. That's when we should be making a run at super regionals in Omaha. So there are steps in the process. I hope that this group really, really takes us as far as they can this year. But I think they're in a good place for us to at least be in a great position to win the Mountain West, and win the conference tournament, and then get into a regional and get hot at the right time, and we'll see where they take us.
Last question. You are no longer the most recent head coach hire at San Diego State.
Okay.
Sean Lewis can take that recognition for now. Have you had discussions with Coach Lewis, and what are your thoughts on what he's doing leading the football team into 2024?
Well, the first thing I'll say is he's got a great first name. He
Yeah.
spells it a little bit different, but no, their staff, to their credit, they've been busy. I haven't really seen them around much, and some of that's my fault too. We've been busy with our preparation. The one thing I have seen is them blowing up on social media and a lot of commitments, and it's definitely an exciting time for football, and I'm eager to see what he's going to do with the offense. I live close to campus, and I've heard their early morning workouts going on over there, so it definitely sounds like they're heading in the right direction and getting after it.
Yeah, Paul and I were actually able to attend last Wednesday's 6 a.m. workout. It was so dark, it was cold, but we made it out there. It's impressive stuff what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we really didn't have access to the strength and conditioning stuff from the prior staff, so it's nice, at least for us, to have some access to the winter conditioning stuff that they're doing now to see, how that's all kind of playing into the process. So it's definitely exciting. The social media aspect, does that play a factor into baseball recruiting as well?
It does to a degree. I mean, you can't I just had a recent birthday, and the guys like to joke I'm getting older, is we can't ignore the way our generation consumes information or how they connect with others. So I think there definitely is an aspect. We've even on the baseball side of things tried to kick that up a notch too on the social media side with what we're putting out there. For example, the Padres stuff, we definitely took advantage of that. Yeah, and I've had a bunch of recruits text me just on the San Diego Padres stuff alone. So I can see why football is doing that. Plus all those really nice exotic cars they're putting in the end zone too when recruits come on campus. Those are all enticing things for sure.
Yeah, no, it's, as I said, it's very different than what San Diego State football has been over the last 15 years. Not necessarily, better or worse, but different. And The results on the field are what's going to matter, but I think it's it's kind of galvanized the fan base just as much as the players, and so that's what we've heard anyway from a lot of the people that we talk to. So we'll see what happens.
That's a good thing. We got to get people reconnected. That's definitely been top of mind for some of the recent meetings I've had with marketing about baseball, and not so much because anything was being done wrong in the past. We're just trying to think of new ways and different ways to engage people and get them out to more games. I mean, at the end of the day, you said it. We need to win more. We need to put a better product on the field. And once we do that, and you mirror that with some of the ideas or visions going on with marketing and promotions, then all of a sudden you start creating a pretty good atmosphere, and then the sky's the limit.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, thank you for your time. I know we're all excited to get the season going next weekend. Good luck, and hopefully we'll see you out there for some games on the field.
Looking forward to it. Hopefully, are you guys going to be around for opening weekend? Or
I hope so. Yeah, Paul and I haven't figured out exactly who's going to be there, but yeah, we want to.
Yeah, I think Portland sent some of this Pacific Northwest weather down here a week early to try to disrupt us.
Yeah, I think the weather should be cleared up by next weekend. So
I hope so. It's probably still going to be a little chilly, but hopefully there's no rain.
Yep. All right, Coach. Have a good one.
Okay, you too.
We want to bring in our co-host, Paul Garrison.
Yeah.
What's going on, Paul?
Going on, Andre? Well, thank you. For those of you watching on YouTube, you could see the wardrobe change that took place midway through. And I had, it was during the storm one of the storms when we interviewed Coach Cole. And I messaged Andre not very, much before the interview and said, bro, I got a leak in my roof, man. I got to take care of it. So I appreciate you holding it down.
Yeah, no, I think it was probably the first interview I did solo on the episode. I know you did a few with some coaches I couldn't make, so I'm glad I finally got to return the favor. What I know you've listened to it. What were your thoughts about what Coach Cole had to say?
I thought they were refreshing. I thought it was really, really good. First of all, I thought you did a great job. I mean, overall, I thought the questions and the way that it lined up, I thought you give a full overview of the season. I think most of all, I thought I was most fascinated with his ideas of kind of laying out the progression of how he sees the next few years going. The idea and the thought that, in 2026 and 2027, that's the year where talent-wise they should build up to being what they are. And, I also thought it was interesting how he talked about that, but don't mistake that for a rebuilding year. And as, I listened to it the day that you had it, and, we've each written a preview of it. And so just kind of digesting that. And I think it's an important distinction because I think it's kind of impossible in college sports to truly do a rebuild, because it's not like you get a better draft pick because you finish worse. Like if anything, that hurts you in recruiting, which is the lifeblood of your program. And so I thought his use of the word foundational, I thought was a great phrase. And I think it really sets up what 2024 is all about for the Aztecs.
Baseball, basketball and football obviously have most of Aztec Nation on social media, the attention of most of Aztec Nation. The other sports take a back seat. The people that do follow baseball, most of them feel like the program and the team has underachieved massively. Mm-hmm. And to them, they might hear Coach Cole say, well, the goal is to win the conference this year and go to a regional, and think that's not enough, right? But I think it's a stepping stone. And you have to give a new coach time, just like you got to give Sean Lewis time football-wise, and you had to give Brian Dutcher time, even though that was a little bit different because it was such a seamless transition from that era. But I understand what he's talking about. You bring in 19, half of your team are true freshmen.
Right.
Imagine that on the football team or on the basketball team. But there's talented guys, and it's not like they brought in guys that can't play right away. I think Coach Cole had a press conference earlier today. On Wednesday? I wasn't able to make it, unfortunately, but I think he mentioned two position infielders that are going to be true freshmen starting, and then one. Actually, no, he mentioned a third baseman and a left fielder. true freshmen starting. That's 2 out of your 9 guys that are going to be, starting as true freshmen. And so there's talented guys there. Jake Jackson, Colby Turner. Um, it's exciting. I mean, Jake Jackson, reading about him was pretty astonishing. I mean, he had football offers. He averaged 22 and 9 playing basketball.
Crazy.
Like that's
It's an athlete.
a 3-sport athlete, not just he's on the field or on the court, but he's actually like one of the top players on the field, on the court. Pretty impressive, and I'm really eager to see him play, roam left field this year and potentially center field in the coming years, as Coach Cole said.
I think you said it well, and I think that's a real exciting piece to look for, and I think that's kind of what makes the Aztecs a little bit of an unknown, right? Because Jake Jackson from one publication was the freshman of the year. Well, if he turns into a legit piece for this team, suddenly the offense doesn't look as like, well, where's the hitting come from? And so then I think that is like a real interesting part. And then I think third base, third base the last couple of years has been a black hole. It's just they haven't been able to find anybody who could play it. First of all, just defensively, and the number of errors, 2 years ago and then into last year, and trying to find some consistency. K. Martinez obviously did a lot of that. Charlie Ree had some play there last year, but trying to figure out like what they do there and how they go for that. Like the idea that there is a freshman who can come in and do that, I think is good. And then I think you turn to the pitching side of things, and I'm really fascinated, obviously, I think by like everybody in the country, by Xavier Cardenas, and seeing him in person during their scrimmage back in October was the first verification that everything Coach Cole said about him was true, i.e., there was scouts there to just do his 2 innings, and the idea that, but the thing that was interesting was Troy Melton, who's now on the Detroit Tigers, fast track to the major leagues, high, I think 4th, 5th round pick. He was Xavier Cardenas before there was Xavier Cardenas. He was the last like big time prospect. And I think that it seems like, and I wish we could have asked Coach Cole this question, would have thought of it ahead of time, but it seems like there's some learning that has taken place, because Troy Melton was a catcher in high school. He comes to the Aztecs. He's a bullpen guy, kind of turned some heads in the summer league, and then he is going into, without very much starter experience, and they put him as their Friday starter. This is our guy. And he has a bad year. And his year is so bad that he comes back to San Diego State another season. Like he wasn't expected to. That was supposed to be his last year, and they were going to get the most out of him. And he just didn't have he just didn't do well. And then he comes back. He's the Friday starter a second time, and he's unreal. I mean, he was like the bright spot on the team. And so like now you have Xavier Cardenas, who his number of starts is, relatively similar to what Troy Melton's was, but they're not putting him as a Friday starter. They got veteran guys, and Troy Melton, the year that he didn't do so well, they had other pitchers who were veterans who could have made that natural progression that Coach Cole's talking about. But they didn't. They jumped Melton over those guys, and those other guys turned out to be better pitchers for the Aztecs than Melton did that year. And I think in seeing that, it's just such a nice place for Cardenas to be, because you got guys who throw hard in Canada and Serrano ahead of him, and so he gets to watch. Where did they do? What made that guy look uncomfortable in the order? What was the scouting report said this is how they approached it. This happened, and you get to do all of that on a weekend, a series. And I think it just really bodes well for what they're trying to do. And I think it was really smart. But it seems like, man, they could have a pretty good rotation.
Yeah, it made sense what Coach Cole was talking about. Like, if our top two guys do what they're supposed to do, then look at game three. We're bringing in this guy who might have the best talent out of the three.
Mhm.
It's really setting up like a series win, right? Or a prospect of a series win. How they're doing it. So they play first game on Friday night, 5 o'clock against Portland. The basketball team has a game at 7 o'clock against New Mexico. So if a lot of people are heading to that game, maybe make it to campus a couple hours early and go check out some baseball. I really love, as we're recording this is Valentine's Day, and the baseball team put out some videos on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it these days, where the players are going around campus and giving roses to females and asking them to come to the game.
Oh,
And if
that's great.
everybody in those videos said they would come as if they did, there should be a good amount of people there. Because not many people said no. So, and who knows how many people they talked to, but it was really cool content. And those are the things that I think football is doing well content wise, basketball is doing well content wise. Just overall, the program, just slightly from a marketing perspective, at least social media marketing, has stepped up its game, I think, in the last year. And I think fans like that stuff. It's just get a way to get interaction, right, with fans, alumni, other students, and I thought that was a really cool one for today.
Yeah, and if you're I don't see if this will. Oh, by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, um, and you now see me in HD, uh, blame Andre. This was my Valentine's gift from Andre. He got me an actual camera that shows me in all of my glory, and it's not pretty, man. I apologize for everybody, but you can blame Andre. I tried to stay blurry. I tried to stay in the 1990s, granulated kind of stuff, but it didn't work out. So I'm gonna try to put my phone in front of the camera and see if it'll say it. But can you see that, Andre, at all?
It's blur. It's hard. Actually, yeah, it's better now.
All right. So what it says is that if you have a ticket to the
Oh
game
yeah,
for the basketball game against New Mexico, you
there
get
you
in
go.
free to the baseball game. So you don't have to do two tickets. You get in free from being able to be able to see the first game, like the first official game of the Shaun Cole era at San Diego State. And I just, and kind of finishing up my ideas about the interview and about their season, I really buy what their approach to what they're doing is. I think building from within, being able, you look at, what Coach Tarasco, Coach Cole, Coach McDougal, and their track records in being able to develop players. It seems to me like if you were to say, like, okay, so what is San Diego State's coaching staff's strength? We don't know them as recruiters yet. We don't know them as what are their tactics during the game, how they manage the game, things like that. We don't even really know them as teachers yet of this Aztec team. But what we do know from their history is that they can develop players. That's what their strength at, and they've done it at the professional level. They've done it at the collegiate level, and the fact that, like, when they were saying, okay, how are we going to build the San Diego State baseball program, and they center it on player development. Number one, if I'm a player, that's what I want, right? Because if you're playing in college, that means you did not get drafted out of high school the way that you wanted to. And so you have to develop in order to beat those high school guys who either got drafted before you or who are freshmen or who are going to be leaving high school now, and you got to be better than them. And so development, I think, is going to be the name of the game, should be the name of the game in this sport, where, NIL and stuff has touched a couple of programs, but like really thinking about it as being a huge moneymaker is maybe a few years away from that being everywhere. So I like the approach, man. And I think that if we really are looking at 26 and 27, and we're having conversations then about the start of the season and expectations and getting votes in the top 25 I think we'll look back to 2024 and we'll say, this is when they beat expectations. This is when they showed up and they were better than what people thought they were going to be. And the aggressive way of running on the base paths, the being clean and balanced and all of those things that Coach Cole, we'll see it play out. And I think the flip side of it is if, in a year from now, if we're talking about, they brought in 19 guys from a year ago, but it didn't quite work. And so they're doing something different or things like that. It's 2024 that's going to tell that. And so I think it's an incredibly important season. And, Aztec fans who want to be supporters of baseball, want to see San Diego State baseball do well. I think this is a great year to get in there on the ground floor and really make sure your presence is felt at Tony Gwynn Stadium.
It's also apparent that this year's non-conference schedule is not as difficult as last year's potentially, which, as a first-time manager with such a young team, that could be a good way to build some momentum, build some confidence. Because, we talked about it in previous episodes, their non-conference schedule was so bad last year. And that was, where they went up against, tougher competition and they were not able to compete. And this year, I think with so many new faces and a new coaching staff, I think it's not an easy schedule by any means, but at least it's not the gauntlet that they may have had the past couple of years. And I think that could help them get off to a better start in the season and build momentum.
Absolutely. Although I will say that Portland is, they were in the preseason poll, they were voted number 2 in the WCC, tied with USD. So, like I said, I agree. I agree with what you said, and getting that momentum and then going forward into the conference, man, I think can be huge. And so it's great, man. It's hope. I know it's not spring, but hope spring, the same idea, right? Beginning of the season, it's like be hopeful and all of those things. And I think that, as Coach Cole said, like competing for a back-to-back regular season conference title is absolutely the expectation. There should be no reason why San Diego State can't be in that conversation here at the end of the year.
Agreed. All right, guys. Hopefully you guys appreciated and enjoyed the interview with Coach Cole. Also appreciate Paul's new HD look.
It is.
As always, we appreciate you guys listening, liking, sharing, following, subscribing. We'll talk to you guys next time. You are listening to the SDSU podcast presented by the East Village Times with your hosts Andre Hagberdian and Paul Garrison.